These are two totally different words, but they are transliterated exactly the same, Li. So this is new. And then, of course, his emphasis on the importance of not only ritual, but the importance of the vital energy called the qi. So he developed a metaphysical thinking. Of course, his whole philosophy is focusing on the question of the xin. Last time I made it clear, it's both affective and cognitive. Affective in the sense that involves emotions and feelings. Cognitive, it's basically analytical thinking. Whereas normally, if we say the philosophy of mind, we're talking about rationality. Normally, we do not put too much emphasis on feelings, but his philosophy of the heart and mind is very, very important. And not only he reformulated these texts, he also contributed as a commentator. This again, very difficult imagining any other civilizations. Maybe Hindu civilization is comparable. Imagine someone who not only re-edited the New Testament, also add some of his ideas to the New Testament, and then people accept it as part of the New Testament. It's out of the question. It's blasphemous. And where Zhu Xi managed to do that. So the authority of him as a commentator is almost unprecedented. So not only new texts, he organized these texts. He developed a system based upon ideas. Some of the ideas were relatively new. He contributed his, we call it interpretive art or commentaries on these texts and shaped them in a particular way. So once I use the term, I think we can still use it, reconstitution of the tradition. So not only he inherited tradition, he reconstituted it. And yet he made the claim, again, it's a fascinating thing, he made the claim that he was authentic transmitter. And most of the people in the society accepted it. Now, if you do something very new, and even your roommate refuses to accept it, you'll be a loner. And if the whole university believes you've done something very nice, for example, one of our great musical professors, and wrote something, help Mozart to finish a score and play. And most of the people hear, aha, that's Mozart. But he got all these critical reflections outside of Harvard, say, this is ridiculous. How can you do something for Mozart? You know who Mozart really is. So anyway, Zhu Xi did that. And not only the community of like-minded around him, but many other people in different areas all considered what he did was authentic, was helpful. So he represented, in other words, he created an ethos and a new kind of understanding of the Confucian tradition. You know, I talk about the tradition in terms of the way. Core values, the scholarly tradition, and also praxis. Praxis meaning politics. And Zhu Xi, no question about the fact he was a great thinker, great literatus. So many people undermine his politics, but recently a very important historian focused his attention almost exclusively on Zhu Xi's politics, and he wrote for at least a couple of volumes. And Zhu Xi exemplified the spirit of protest as well. Normally we consider a great scholar of this kind, they be very conservative, try to reorganize the tradition. I'll give you one example. There are all kinds of other examples. In the period when the emperor announced for the next month or so, sometimes for the next for the next 40 days or 50 days, anyone could come up with memorials, meaning documents submitted to the court, with license to say anything. The court is not going to punish you. You could criticize all the officials, you criticize policies and so forth. You could do it. So Zhu Xi went to the court and presented 3 memorials. Normally, if you present something, the emperor would be present with many, many other scholars. You normally read it out loud. People listen. And the first memorial say, wow, the situation is terrible. Our situation is terrible. Almost like someone who presented the paper to the White House is now with all these kind of financial problems, the United States is not only declining, it's in a terrible shape. You'll be not only you will not be hurt, if not punished, maybe marginalized in that situation. But he made that remark, and the emperor responded positively. We're in trouble. The invading forces from the north, and our military situation is bad. Our bureaucracy is not functioning well. Our people, even though didn't suffer starvation, were very, very unhappy about the situation. The second memorial he read was the problem is with the people who are very close to you. And these people are not cultivated people. These people are mean people. These people are corrupt. And that's the problem the state is in such a state. And the emperor already felt it's a bit too much, so he didn't respond. And the third one is say, well, the real problem is with you because you didn't cultivate yourself enough. You're not a moral person. You presented not a moral person, not a good example. You should set the best example for your ministers. The minister will have to be responsible. So he, of course, left after 40 days in the court without offering any position. And then he decided, a very conscientious decision, that he would not involve in politics, especially court politics. He got a stipend from the government, nevertheless, and just enough for him to survive. And then he devoted himself exclusively to study and to the development of his own philosophy. And of course, I mentioned that the philosophy was not only influential in China, but in Korea and Japan as well. However, at the time when he was alive, already people began to criticize his philosophy. And for a while, the philosophy is considered, Zhu's thought were considered very heterodox, not the orthodox thinking, and prohibited from wide circulation. But then it re-emerged as a very powerful interpreter of the Confucian tradition. Now, let me revisit the shape of his philosophical system. We talked about it quite extensively, but I need to mention it again. I made the assertion that in terms of the entire history of China, his influence, in a way, is comparable to Confucius.